So I'm sensing okay, if we were gonna split this into two, you had the cuddly option and the cutthroat option. You're more cutthroat because you know at the end of the day you believe in economics, etc., and that's that's the bottom line, etc.
Welcome back, everyone, to episode 6 of Maturing Cheddar with your hosts, me, Ryan, and Lewis. No Ham Todd this week as they're away on vacation still. So we've got another interesting few topics to talk about this week on Maturing Cheddar. Just before we start, as usual, find us on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts. Happy to know any of your comments on our topics and what you think of what we're talking about. Anyway, so Lewis, what are we kicking off with today?
And today's topic is about hiring and firing, I guess. So for people who don't know me, I'm an engineer in the UK. I'm currently a postgraduate student, but I'm also very interested in Formula One motor racing. So that's the, if you like, pinnacle of motorsport. Sorry, NASCAR or IndyCar. Yeah, something got me piqued my interest the other week. So basically, Red Bull is a team in Formula One. They have a main team which is called Red Bull Racing. It's situated in Milton Keynes, UK, and they have a second team that they call Toro Rosso. So for you Italians out there, that's Red Bull in Italian. It's based in Italy, but they have some team members in the UK too. But basically, they run Red Bull as their main team and Toro Rosso as their junior team. And what that means is drivers and some engineering staff, I believe, are trained in Toro Rosso, and then they'll make the jump up to the main team when they're ready. Now, what happened is, over the summer break, so Formula One has a summer break in August, and yeah, basically one of the Red Bull drivers was demoted and swapped for one of the junior drivers in Toro Rosso. So Pierre Gasly, French driver, was swapped for Alex Albon, a Thailand driver. So Pierre Gasly moving from Red Bull to Toro Rosso, and Alex Albon vice versa. Seen as a very controversial move, given the fact that the leadership of Red Bull, who also basically lead Toro Rosso, pretty much explicitly stated that Pierre Gasly would not be demoted, even though people, journalists, and even myself were probably expecting Pierre Gasly to be moved down. They literally said he's not going to move anywhere, and literally 2 weeks later, it was announced out of the blue. In sport, and in Formula One in particular, it's a cutthroat business. You have to be performing. Pierre Gasly wasn't performing, and so they made this change in the interest of the team and what they're trying to do. Now, it just got me thinking, and I wanted to ask you, Ryan, you're not a big fan of Formula One, but you are surely interested in the way people are hired and fired. Now, if this was real life, would it surprise you that someone's been demoted or just straight up fired, even after being told that their job is safe? Imagine being told your job is safe wherever you work, and then you get fired 2 weeks later through no external pressure. Do you find that weird, or do you think that's the way actually we should be operating in a capitalist environment?
Again, I think this comes back to kind of what we were talking about last week about kind of the merit and how much value you add to your company. So Pierre Gasly, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Excellent.
Yeah, sorry, how was these results? Versus his teammate?
He was comprehensively beaten in all but one race out of 12, I think. And that one race he did beat him, Max Verstappen got crashed into. So he was comprehensively beaten, and not only beaten, he wasn't really finishing where he was expected to finish as well. So his results were actually pretty poor, but some arguments for in favour of him are that you're driving a car that's maybe not suited to his driving style, and he just needs a bit of time to bed into the team. He's basically there for half a season, which is very unusual to be dropped after half a season. Let's put it that way. So I guess it's the equivalent, right, of having a 6-month probation. But I've never known anyone to get fired. No, personally, I've never known anyone to be fired after a 6-month probation period in the UK. I'm not sure if that exists in the US. But, I guess that's where I'm coming from.
I mean, going back to like the Formula One example. So he's been demoted, right? But if he can prove himself in the lower squad Toro Rosso, then he has the opportunity to then go back up to the Red Bull team, right? So he's not being fired. He still has that opportunity to push back up the ranks. I mean, does that happen much?
I think it's very unlikely. Very, very unlikely. In my lifetime of watching Formula One, 15 years, I've probably seen one driver get a second chance. Maybe two. The one driver was a guy called Roman Grosjean, who left Formula One. He didn't really impress anyone, I don't think, and then he came back. The other one being Kimi Räikkönen, but he was a world champion at the time. He left after becoming world champion, and then came back. So as a popular figure. So I don't expect him to really get another chance at the big team. He may get a chance elsewhere, but I mean, don't you think it's a bit heartless? They literally said he's going to be fine. We'll get behind him. We'll give him all the resources we need, and then 2 weeks later, boom, you're out the door. Yeah,
I mean, I definitely think they shouldn't say stuff like this, right? If they're just going to chuck him out, but I mean, their goal at the end of the day is to win races, and if he's underperforming, and if they think in their own minds that he's not going to get there, right? He's not going to get to a podium finish or something, then they may as well give some younger driver a chance who might have a high probability of winning. I think you see this in sport, all the time. Like, jobs are never safe, right? You always need to perform to keep your job, because in sports there's so much new young talent that's kind of flowing in through the door that if you can't keep up, then you're going to be out the door. For example, in football in America, so American football, I'm not a huge expert, but each year they have this NFL draft, the National Football League draft, and each team will draft players from college and add them to their existing roster. Yep. So they have 90 players in their team for the preseason games. And by the time the season comes to start a few months later, they need to cut those 90 players to 53 players. So those cuts just happen in one day. So 37 players will just get cut out of the teams. And so imagine this: you've just come out of college, you've entered the NFL draft, you've been selected by a football team, you're like, yes, I'm sorted. And then suddenly you're cut, right? Just before the season starts. What are you going to do with your life? Because many of these players actually that come out of college, they won't even get their degree because they want to before they graduate, they just want to enter into football. They want to play football, right? It's their life. So they haven't even got their degree from their college. And then to be cut by a team, you don't have a degree. Maybe you can go back to college and finish it. I don't know, but you also don't have a job. I mean, it's a business at the end of the day, and they're in the business of winning, because winning's gonna make more money. And also viewers, right? You watching sport, you want to see the highest quality. You don't want to see people that sport team feels sorry for, so they're just giving them extra chances. You want to see the highest quality because that's the most entertaining. So in terms of sport, I'm all for it. I'm all for them, cutting people who are underperforming to get in new talent. Right. Okay. So let me extend that point. That's good. It's good that you finished on that, because I want to extend that. So do you think? And I actually agree with you there on the sports side of thing. It's a very sad story for when they get dropped, etc.
and it's pretty shocking actually that they cut these teams from 90 to 50. That's insane. I can't think of any other sport, or I can't think of a sport that does that, really. But do you think that normal employment, like it's what I'd call normal, the normal economic world, should employ such tactics? We live in a capitalist. We both live in capitalist environments. Would you agree? And so capitalism rewards performance, and so if you're not performing to the best standard, then should your job be on the line, even if you're a cleaner?
So let me kind of answer your question with a question.
Okay.
If you run a business,
yeah,
and you got 10 people working for you, 8 of them, they're performing, they're making you money. 2 people, for like the last 6 months, they've been kind of doing shit, right? And they're effectively losing you money, and you're only allowed to employ those 10 people. Do you fire those 2 people underperforming to get new talent in that can make you way more money, or do you just kind of keep them because you feel a bit sorry for them? Maybe they'll improve in 6 months' time. You don't know. Like, what decision do you make in that case?
Yeah, I'd hope that I'd have a system in place already that captured any downturn. So I'd hope by 6 months, I'd hope to have enough information to make that decision rather than just looking at the pure numbers. Being able to understand exactly why they have been struggling. So there might be pressure. Let's just say one of them's got pressures at home that's infiltrating into their job, and then let's just say the other one, the project he's working on is just not up to his speciality skills, so he'll get out of that rut. One of those, on one side of those, I can instantly help that person, right? I feel that's my responsibility to help that person, put him on a project that actually suits his skills. Whereas the other one, if I was cutthroat, I'd just say, well, you need to sort those problems out, otherwise you're out the door. Or I've got responsibility to give them time and help them. That's so on the one side, I think there's a person who I can help, should be doing that. On the other side, there's this secondary question we need to discuss, which is, do we act like sport, like they do in sports, and just cut this person, get a new one in, or do we try and help them through this difficult time? Because going back to the Formula One example, or the football example, for Formula One, Pierre Gasly didn't get to Red Bull by accident. He was promoted and was going through their young driver program, and he was the next best thing they had. So he's been promoted on merit, but for some reason he hasn't realised his potential. And I don't know the ins and outs of why he hasn't performed. But for me, I feel that talent just doesn't just disappear just because you go to a big team. So maybe the team weren't providing him with something. And like the football players that all get cut, the scouts must have seen something to say, okay, we've got a player on our hands here, and all of a sudden they get cut and they're left with nothing. So I mean, does the team, with the football one, it definitely seems to me that they're forced to do that by the rules, which is a bit different. Whereas the Formula One example I gave, they were definitely not forced to do that. They were forced from a business standpoint to do that. So would I out of those 2 people, going back to the question you posed to me, I think I definitely try and move one person onto a project that suits their skills, and thankfully I don't have to make a decision on the second person, because I'm not a business owner, and I'm not going to say that out here now, because either way I'd either be seen as naive or too ruthless. It's such a hard decision to make, and an expensive one as well, because whichever one you make, if the person doesn't recover and perform, it's going to cost you money, and if you fire the person, it's going to cost you money instantly to hire another person, right? So, I mean, I don't know. Employment is always tricky, and I think sport is the most pure example of an employment contract in many ways, because it's all based on performance, which is why I personally love it. I love sport. You don't get any. Well, I was going to say you don't get any politics, but of course you do. But it's the closest you can get to pure performance, right?
It's tough. I mean, there's been a lot in the news the last few months about Deutsche Bank, like a German investment bank, and they're situated all over the world. They have offices everywhere, and they've had this big reorganization within Deutsche, where they're cutting costs, and I think they've laid off something like 18,000 employees. So
Wow.
So this is another example where, I mean, they're effectively getting fired, right? They're getting laid off. So, and this case is a bit different, right? Because they're not necessarily underperforming. Okay, the company is just reorganizing and saying, well, we don't really need that department anymore. We're trying to cut costs. So, some of these people, they could be 35, right? Just started a family with their wife, and suddenly they lose, a great job where they're bringing in a couple of $100,000 a year, and they have a family to support. Now, I'm sure they probably have the skill set to go and find another job, but this is, it's just an example now of someone who is getting fired, not necessarily based on performance, but based on something which is out of their control. It's just the way the economy is, I guess. Back in the 2008 recession, this is what happened. I mean, the banks laid off a load of people, right? Because they were in so much debt, and it wasn't necessarily the fault. I mean, it was some people's fault, right? But it wasn't the fault of everyone who worked for that bank. Some people were just working in their own department. They didn't really know what was going on, but they were laid off, right, because of other people's actions. Inevitable that this is going to happen sometimes, and I think people just have to kind of move on. Be dynamic in their career, be able to have multiple skill sets to be able to get different jobs.
So I'm sensing okay, if we were gonna split this into two, you had the cuddly option and the cutthroat option. You're more cutthroat because you at the end of the day you believe in economics, etc., and that's the bottom line, etc. Would you agree? Is that fair?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, but I also agree with having, like you were saying earlier, systems in place to try and catch underperformance at the really early stages before it has an impact, and identify the reason for that underperformance. So maybe you can change that around. Because actually, now just thinking about it, you said it's costly to fire someone. So and it is, right, because you pay them severance, so then you have to find someone you have to spend time to rehire people and stuff like this. So if someone's just underperforming for a few months, it may not be beneficial to just fire them. You want to find the cause first, because if it's an easily solvable cause which can improve their performance, then it's actually going to save money for the business. So it's not, you don't necessarily want to just get rid of them. But I guess we're kind of talking about two different things, because I kind of went down the road with Deutsche Bank. People were getting laid off. It was completely outside of their control. And then we've also got this case where people are just underperforming. And the question is, should we fire them because they're underperforming, or should we find the root of the cause? And I think we should find the root of the cause first before we fire them. But in the case of the Deutsche Bank, it's just, that's the way the economy goes, right?
Yeah.
You get laid off. You don't have any control. You have to move on and find something else.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that last point with the moving on. But the root cause one, in the two examples we gave, the Red Bull driver and then the football team, the Red Bull. Let's just assume. I assume they will have found the root cause of the driver's problem and then made the decision and said, right, that's a fundamental problem that we can't instantly fix. We'll make this decision. Whereas the football, because it's so big, that roster is so big, and they've got to cut it down by 50%. That might just be literally that's got to be just performance based. We've got this player, he's the best right now. We've got this player, he's the best right now. There's no space for this guy. He's got to go, and they won't. I don't see why they'd try and find a root cause for that guy. And if anything, he's out of the two situations we've given, he's the one who's most least well off, right? He's the guy that's not only been let go, he'll have probably been let go without being told why. And that's the point I was getting at, I guess, with this whole subject is, being fired and not being able to rectify the root cause. And so you're saying, in any case, if you can find that root cause, then you've got to be able to find it and try and work with the person to stop them underperforming. But in some situations, you may not have the opportunity to find that root cause. You may not even be told what your problem is, and you just got to go. In the UK, at least, for government or public-backed companies, government-backed organisations, very, very difficult to just get rid of someone once they're in, right? And I guess the same goes for the university. In the university, it's also very difficult. Let's say as an academic, you get an academic position as like a lecturer, or higher, it's pretty much you've got a job for life, essentially. You may not get promoted if your performance is bad, but it's very unlikely that you'll be fired. And I don't know if that's the same for the US. I don't know.
Yeah, they have this system where you become a professor after your PhD, and you start on this tenure track. So over the next 5 to 6 years, you have to prove yourself and publish papers. And if you prove yourself, you become tenured. And once you become tenured at the university, then you have a job for life. You cannot be fired for anything,
no matter what you do.
Well, I mean, there's probably some if you go and
in terms of someone, we're talking performance-wise.
Performance-wise. So you can just, once you've got tenure, you can just stop. You don't need to research anymore. You can't be fired, and this happens a lot. It's kind of a bad incentive program, this tenure track, because they work extremely hard for 5 to 6 years to publish papers, which is very tough. And then if they do well enough, they get this tenure where they're guaranteed a salary, guaranteed a job, without having to hit any certain performance criteria. And I mean, you can see why a lot of people, after spending 5 to 6 years of hard work, will suddenly kind of stop, take a step back, and maybe lay off the gas a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think it's a strange, a strange system.
I think that is very strange, and I'm not sure if that is the same in the United States or the United Kingdom as well. I think it is. Yeah, it seems like it is. Oh no, it's removed. It was removed in 1988, and so you get permanent and temporary contracts for academics now. And if you have a permanent contract in a UK university, you have an open-ended position, which I guess that basically means you can't get fired. But I guess at the same time, it also means that you could be put for scrutiny easier rather than having tenure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think I agree with you. It's a very, very bad position because, if you're putting so much faith in that person and hoping that their drive, if you like, remains. Because imagine if you're a PhD and you come in and you get a supervisor who, in his field, is excellent, but he's just lost motivation. As a person who's doing a PhD, I'm like, that'd be the worst situation to go in under. I'd rather go in under a supervisor who's actually trying to attain tenure.
I mean, it's a pretty cushy situation, right, for a professor, because they get paid well, right? And after you got tenure, and you could just absolutely be chilling, and not do anything at all. I think there are some things like you have to teach, a course every so often, right? But I mean, that's fine, right? But you just don't have that pressure of having to publish. I mean, I think if you do publish your research, then you get a bit of a bonus. So there's an incentive there, but the base salary is already pretty decent for these professors. So
and you can, yeah, exactly. You're chilling, and you've got freedom then to go and do whatever you want, right? You've got a tenure, and then you could just go and do something completely different. Surely, you do the bit of teaching, you do your obligations. Is that the point? I'm guessing that's the point. You've got this academic who's proven that he can, within his subject at least, think freely and, achieve, not achieve, but share knowledge to the wider community. So as a reward, we're going to, unshackle you and allow you to do that because you've proven that you can do it, and allow you to do that at your own pace and etc. without any boundaries. Maybe there's positives there, and maybe there's stuff that can be learnt from it. I mean, I'm sure you have good and bad examples at your university. Don't name names, but can you think of any off the top of your head?
Yeah, I mean, I can think of professors where you kind of look at them most recent publications, and those most recent publications maybe 20 years ago, and I think that's probably that's a great example of why the system could be a failure. But it'd be great to have a statistic that shows kind of the years before tenure versus the years after tenure, and look at the quality of research for different professors, to see if kind of the pressure of having to get research out to get tenure makes you perform better and get better research, or once you have tenure and you have this this job security, maybe that creates a more you have more a creative environment because you don't have this outward pressure. I mean, I don't have any of those statistics, but I'll be interested, because I feel like people who aren't under pressure can be more creative because they're more relaxed. All right, so that's been episode 6 of Maturing Cheddar. I hope you've enjoyed listening. As usual, please leave comments, give us your feedback on the topics. We'll definitely take everything into account. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud. Follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook. You know where. See you next week. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.